This video is dedicated to New Orleans, the state of Louisiana, and the Quadroons who came around the turn of the 19th century. This material may be disturbing to many viewers because of the sensitive subject of racial ostracization that it describes. It is presented for educational purposes of an historical time period in New Orleans when the city was under French and Spanish rule from 1682 until the territory of Louisiana was purchased from Napoleon by President Jefferson in 1803. But Louisiana didn't become a state until April 30th, 1812, a few months before the War of 1812. The names of all the characters are fictional, and there is no law firm by the name of Murdstone, Swindler, Hichokoff and Gash. But the facts are real, especially about the plight of the unfortunate Quadroons, those people with 1/4 or less of black blood in their veins. They came as refugees after the Haitian Revolution, about 9,000 of them in 1809. The rest is history.
Good afternoon. This is Anna T. Bellum with Abolition News Network in New Orleans, September 15, 1842. Abolitionist Lydia Maria Child has just published a short story called Quadroons, about a pretty girl who was the daughter of a wealthy white politician and his black slave. We've been searching New Orleans to talk to such a person of this background called a quadroon to find out how bad it is for a free woman of color to marry a white man as told in the story by Miss Child. Here we have a girl named Blanche in the studio to discuss the plight of the quadroon. How do you do?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How do you do to you too? Blanche, I have so many questions to ask you. I don't know where to begin. First, I noticed you don't have a last name. Can you tell us why?
Ms. Bellum, you see, there is a wall separating the quadroon from the rest of society in New Orleans. So even though I'm the daughter of Judge Murdstone here in New Orleans, and my mother, Lulu, is his slave, I cannot take Judge Murdstone's name as my own.
That's terrible. Yes, I do know the law firm Murdstone, Swindler, Hichokoff and Gash. They are very well known here. So then, are you an embarrassment to him?
Probably so. The illegality of interracial marriages at this time is an attempt to humiliate and disgrace women of color who live with white men. So even though my mother was his mistress and slave, he decided to marry a white society lady of great wealth. He told my mother, that gutless judge, my father, he decided to tell my mother by letter, and she was so devastated, she committed suicide.
Absolutely awful. Let's go back to the beginning. When and where did the trouble with mixed racial relationships begin?
I think it was in 1788 when the Spanish governor of Louisiana, Governor Miro, saw the embarrassment that a quadroon could cause to Spanish society. There were about 1,500 unmarried women of color living in little houses down by the river, and he feared prostitution. He passed an ordinance that made it a crime for women of color to walk around with silk, jewels, or plumes in their hair. They could only wear a madras kerchief, like the one I have on. Call it a tignon, like West Indies women wear.
I see. So that's why we have New Orleans as it exists today. Is prostitution really a problem, though, with quadroons?
Absolutely not. The quadroon's only problem is that she is the offspring of a relationship between a white man and a woman of color. Now, whether she is a slave or free, it doesn't matter. Now, she might be very loyal to her white partner, and he might be also, but he will always remain a bachelor because this kind of marriage is specifically forbidden by the Civil Code of Louisiana of 1808.
All right, now let's get back to you. How are you doing?
Miserable. I'm in love with a white lawyer who is a member of the New Orleans Bar Association, and he doesn't know that I'm not 100% pure white, so that makes me hate the black part of me. We are a condemned race.
Here.
I can only I can only marry a black man legally. Sometimes I just think of ending my life when I think that Henrik will never be able to show me off in front of his friends once he discovers that I even have one drop of black blood in my veins. I'll always be just a quadroon. That's 1/4 black.
That's really sad. Would you rather pretend and pass yourself off as white then?
Yes and no. There was a large influx of white men and their quadroon mistresses that came from Haiti after the Revolution of 1809. There was a lot of myths and rumors promoted by French writers that mixed-race women were hypersexual, more lustful than European women, had special charms, and that we were only interested in seduction.
That's absolutely terrible. Would you prefer to follow that stereotype?
Ms. Bellum, I could be enslaved here if I were discovered to be a quadroon and didn't carry my free papers with me. I pass myself off as white, but my black friends feel that I'm deserting our race and trying to get in with white society. So I'm stuck in the middle.
That sounds like hypocrisy. If you have to pretend you're someone you're not, is there any way out?
No, not really. It is assumed here in New Orleans that the quadroon is at fault. That's because women like my mother were sexually exploited. So that makes every quadroon an easy target. Free women of color are then susceptible to aggression by wealthy white men. There really isn't an easy way out.
Wow, I understand. But your lawyer boyfriend might see this program now and know that you're a quadroon.
No, he's in court today defending a slave owner who is there because he whipped his slave to death for merely misbehaving.
Blanche, that does not seem like the kind of boyfriend you should want to have. He's not sympathetic to slaves or to whipping.
That may be, but some quadroons have found life partners at quadroon balls on Orleans Street. That's where my mother first took me to my first debutante ball. That's where we can meet rich white men and wear our finest silks and jewelry. If we are lucky, we can meet a white man, and live in a settled, respectable relationship that is usually only attainable by white women.
Yes, if you're lucky. So, should you remain white or black?
If I stay black here in New Orleans and I lose my free papers, I could be sold at auction as a fancy maid. Now, the price that a fancy maid goes for is usually about $1,500 to $5,235, which is much more than the price of a field hand, which goes for $900. But you can guess what a fancy maid is used for.
Hi. I overheard what you were saying. I'm Barbed Wire. I'm the receptionist here at A&N. And I have something to say, and I'd like you to listen. I assume that you think you're going to meet a rich planter and live in a house like this, and that he's going to fall in love with you because you're pretty and charming, and you're going to get married and have 10 black and white children and live happily ever after. But that's not going to happen. That's not how life is. The white society that you're trying to rub elbows with is not going to be a friend or consider you as an equal. You'll have to be on guard always to make sure that they don't see that you have one drop of black blood running through your veins. You'll be disgraced and outcast. My advice to you, take it or leave it, is to stick with your own race. You're not Sally Hemings, and your boyfriend is not President Jefferson. Use your beauty and your brains where you'll be appreciated. That's all I have to say about that.
Miss Wire, you sure said a mouthful. Blanche, I really hope that someday in America, the acceptance of intermarriage as you envision it will come true, and you can find your dream man, no matter what color he is. It may take a war against the South and a lot of civil rights laws before that is achieved. This is Anna T. Bellum with A&N saying, Stick with what you know. Good evening.
Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Glory, hallelujah. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. Oh, yes, Lord. Sometimes I'm almost to the ground. Oh, yes, Lord. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows but Jesus. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Glory, hallelujah. If you get there before I do, oh yes, Lord, tell all of my friends I'm a-comin' too. Oh yes, Lord. Oh, nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows but Jesus. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Glory, hallelujah.